I would love to see a return of psychoscarapy and everything that comes with that disgusting house. It was one of the houses that I experienced my first year, and I get to bring my nephew this year for the first time, and I would love for him to experience the horrid rancid smells that is psychoscarapy. Jack is back. Hi, hello, and welcome back to a podcast where I talk about discovering life in your 30s, the chaos of just existing right now and everything else in between. You know it, you love it. Welcome back to Chaos and Fuckery, and today we are all about the chaos. We are about the king of chaos, the GOAT, the HHN icon of icons, in my opinion. Jack the Clown is officially back for HHN 35, and we have officially entered HHN speculation season. Really early, we've got our first merch drop. We know Jack and Oddfellow are coming back to clash for Chaos and Control, and that's about all we know. But we know a house, the icons, the theme, Carnival of Nightmares. We've got merch already in March, which is insane. So I figured I'd do a fun little episode this week and talk all about my speculations on IPs, my speculations on originals, which won't really be my only real speculation on an original is maybe a return of Wicked Growth and maybe a scare zone like Crooked Lane turning into a full level house. Horror Nights has been known to do that in the past, where they take very popular scare zones, and I think Crooked Lane and the Masquerade scare zone, whatever scare zone that was, I can't think of the name of it, from last year, were two of the more popular scare zones that have the potential to turn full house. But Toxic 20s is in the area that tends to turn into full houses. I think Mr. Sweets. But I let them do their thing with originals. I would love to see a return of some of the Horror Nights' favorite originals, like Scarecrow, or even the one with the shipwreck from a few years ago. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was an amazing house, amazing set piece, maybe an expansion on Artista and how he connects to all of this, or how Sergio connects to all of it. Whatever it is, I would love to see, originals from years past come back and get sequels, or come back and, a Slaughter Cinema. I do think it is an anniversary year. We are likely to get Slaughter Cinema 3, I think, from the originals. But other than that, unless you consider Universal Monsters an original, then I'm not really sure. I consider Monsters an original, and I think in order to expand Darkmoor, they'll need to give us a house based on the expansion. So from an original perspective, the one thing that I might be calling early, it might be too early to have this house. I do think whether it be this year or in future years, we will get another Universal Monsters house completely based on the one monster we know is coming to Darkmoor over at Epic that we haven't seen a house for yet. The man, the myth, the legend, creature from the Black Lagoon, or Gilly. That's the really only monsters speculation I have, is to get a future creature house, because we haven't seen him in really any of the houses, and we know Epic is getting expanded. So I think those two things will go hand in hand, but we don't really know when that expansion's happening yet. But when it does, I do think we will get that Gilly house. It could be this year, it could be future years. But that's my really only monsters speculation when it comes to Horror Nights, and I'm not really even sure this year is the year that it applies to, because the only expansion that we're aware of currently at Epic is the future Quidditch Cup ride that has permits filed for in the Potter at Epic. We know there is future expansions for Darkmoor planned, but when that construction starts and how that plays out into a Horror Nights speculation is a little up in the air right now. But IPs is a big conversation going on in the speculation world right now, and I think my speculation lists are a little bit different than a lot of the rumors. I am looking at years past and histories and relationships that Universal might have had with other entities like Netflix or Blumhouse. And what I'm seeing thus far is the rumor that Scream is coming because of Scream 7 this year is completely and totally false. There has been a long-standing history with the Scream franchise and Horror Nights that just can never be solved. Every time it's rumored, something happens and Scream goes away. I don't foresee us getting Scream on an icon-heavy year either. If Ghostface were to come to the parks, it would be very similar to that of Art the Clown coming to the parks or when The Weeknd was in the parks, where I firmly believe the owners of that franchise, because it has been such a long-standing feud with Ghostface coming to Horror Nights, if Ghostface made his way to Horror Nights to terrorize all of us fans, he would have to be the main icon of the year. We saw it with Stranger Things. We've seen it with Walking Dead. We've seen IPs be the main icon, and I do genuinely believe that there would be no Horror Nights original icons associated with a Ghostface year, and we already know we're getting Jack and Oddfellow, so the likelihood of Ghostface this year is slim to none. While there is a rumor that we're getting Fortnitemares, and that would be the way to get around having Ghostface with Universal and not having to bring Scream, the actual franchise, to Horror Nights, I don't see that working either. Just because Fortnitemares, which I don't actually see being a thing, came to Horror Nights doesn't mean all of their IPs. Because there's also a rumor that Kingdom Hearts is going to Fortnite. There are Disney characters. You're not gonna see a Disney character from Fortnite in Horror Nights. You're just not. And realistically, I don't foresee, all of the IPs associated with Fortnite okaying them being properties at Horror Nights, and that's what would have to happen to make Fortnitemares. You can't just say Fortnite is coming to Horror Nights and make it okay. All of those individual intellectual properties would have to be agreed upon before they brought them, even as a scare zone, to Horror Nights. So I don't think there's much behind that rumor, and I don't think it's a valid solution to get around the issues we've had with the Scream franchise in the past. Now, what are realistic speculations for IPs in my head? For me, one that I haven't seen really anyone talk about, and I think it's because we just had it last year and people are forgetting that we do have repeat house years, is FNAF. We got a second FNAF movie and we know there's a third. We also know that the original FNAF house was stalled by a couple years, partially due to production, with the first movie not getting out before the Horror Nights season. And my firm belief is it was stalled to better align with the release of the second movie and therefore continuing the franchise through a multi-year rather than replacing or bringing it back in future years when the other movies come out. The timing of the first house being right before the second movie gave them a year to build the second house. Also, it gave them time to get more animatronics built for the future house. I do believe the second house was in the works before we even close wrap on the first house. I believe we're getting the Mangle animatronic and a future other animatronic expansions. I do not think Universal would go so in depth with Jim Henson's Creature Shop to do a one-off event. I do not believe that last year's FNAF house was the end of FNAF at Halloween Horror Nights. The merch lines were huge. The lines themselves for the houses in both Orlando and Hollywood were never longer or never shorter than an hour. Most nights it was at capacity at the beginning of the night and at the end of the night. That house was extremely popular to the event, and I don't foresee Universal's deal for that property only being for the one house. I do believe we'll get one for all three movies, and it'll just continue to cycle through each year of the house. Maybe the third house will be a promo, like we've seen in years past with other horror franchises, to the third movie. I'm not actually sure when the third movie comes out, but obviously it'll be sometime between now and next year if we do get that second house this year, which I do think we will. Popularity, the fact that they've left the merch in the parks for as long as they have and almost made it a permanent line for a while. There are so many things that point to FNAF being a part of this year's property. That's my number one speculation for IP houses we're gonna get this year. There is a lot of speculation that Sinners is coming, and based on the awards, I am gonna play it could be Sinners or it could be Weapons. Both horror movies had a very strong support in the general critic realm as strong franchises coming to Horror Nights. I foresee Sinners, but Weapons came out before, and given that they start working these houses long before these properties come out, or long before the event season even starts, right? There's been tweets out from John Murdy on the Hollywood side that he's been working one of the houses before last year's season wrapped, and that's not unheard of in the Horror Nights world. So, with that being said, I do think Sinners came out too late for us to get a Sinners house this year. I could say the same about Weapons, but not having one of those two very well recepted houses at Horror Nights when it comes to IPs would be odd. I could definitely see Sinners coming. And I think if we're choosing, what one wins out, it would be Sinners. Now, for another video game franchise, there has been a couple really hard-hitting video game franchises that have come to Horror Nights in the past. Fallout came last year. I don't think that house was well received enough to get a second season house this year, but they could have signed a deal with Amazon Prime that we get a house based on the second season. Last year's first house was supposed to be an entry into the second season. I don't know if Fallout is getting a third season on Amazon Prime, but with a big company like Prime, similar to Netflix and Stranger Things, I don't foresee that being a one-off situation. So either we're going to get some other Prime horror series because Fallout didn't do well, or we're going to see more Fallout is a possibility. Going to other big companies, Stranger Things. We have seen every other season of Stranger Things come to life in the houses at Horror Nights Orlando, and I do think it is a valid speculation, but personally, I don't believe Stranger Things Season 5 has enough material to truly create a house. I also believe, based on the fact that we never got a Haunting of Bly Manor post the Haunting of Hill House house, despite its popularity, that the relationship between Netflix and Universal is on good terms post the last Stranger Things house. I don't think we are going to get a Stranger Things Season 5 for multiple reasons. One, Universal doesn't typically bring back series without them being consecutive years. So, for instance, when we had American Horror Story, those houses were based multiple seasons per house. We had 2 or 3 years of American Horror Story built up in the pipeline of houses before the material ran out and production on Horror Nights houses was moving faster than production in the TV realm. Was no more seasons of American Horror Story to produce, or if at the time there was only one by the time they got to the next year and we lost American Horror Story. We have never seen an American Horror Story house come back to Horror Nights since that final season where production in the TV show caught up to production in the houses. I do believe we'll see a similar thing happen with Stranger Things, where we never see the conclusion of the Stranger Things houses because of the multi-year gap between Stranger Things 1, 2. Was it 1 and 2 and then 3, 4, and... No, yeah, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Stranger Things 5 would be the final house we get. I don't think Stranger Things 5 had enough material to warrant an entire house. I also don't know that the way Stranger Things 5 was set up would be really translatable to a Horror Nights house. They really struggled with the initial Vecna interactions in the season 4 version of the house. 5 would get more complicated, and I don't particularly see that working out well as it wouldn't be as big of a house due to the multi-year time gap and reception of Stranger Things 5. I think Stranger Things is also too big of an IP to go alongside Icons. It just doesn't work. We have seen glimpses of Stranger Things in, I think the first Stranger Things house was in fact during 30 Years of Fear, but because of the time gap being so large between the last Stranger Things house and now, I just don't see it being the once shining and sparkling house that pulled in everybody. I think people are tired of it, similar to the way most Horror Nights goers got tired of Walking Dead year after year after year after year. It's different with the Icons, in my opinion, which is why a lot of people are excited about Jack and Oddfellow versus IPs repeating every year. People are also tired of Blumhouse. While FNAF isn't directly connected to the Blumhouse multiverse that is The Purge and Black Phone and Happy Death Day, we do have the potential of getting something Blumhouse related in the form of Black Phone 2 being released. I do believe there are a few other sequels, not just Black Phone, that have come out since our last Blumhouse mix-up house. So we could see a return of the Blumhouse house. I wouldn't necessarily want that. I am kind of tired of Blumhouse myself, but if doing a Blumhouse mix-up house or a Blumhouse scare zone means we get to keep FNAF, I would be okay with that. When it comes to video game franchises I think might make a reappearance, though, aside from FNAF, I could also see Resident Evil Requiem. Resident Evil has notoriously gone down in Horror Nights history as one of the worst houses to ever be created, but I could see the Resident Evil franchise wanting to make a go at a redemption arc with their latest game that just came out. Another one we could see adapted, Cabin in the Woods being adapted for a Horror Nights house, is Until Dawn. With the movie that followed the video game storyline coming out, or at least I haven't seen that movie, I could see Until Dawn getting a haunted house this year. I don't know who owns that right to the movie, but we saw Last of Us come to life. We saw similar popularity, A Quiet Place, which wasn't a video game, but, you know, kind of indie out there stories that don't usually make big headlines. We could see Until Dawn, both the video game or the movie, come to life as a Halloween Horror Nights house. Other speculations out there is a Gaga house. I personally do not like the musician houses. The only one that I didn't completely hate was House of a Thousand Corpses. The Weeknd house was just weird and gimmicky. I can't think of any other musician house at the moment, but point being is they're not houses I'm typically a fan of. And with that being said, I don't think Gaga wants that kind of attention. Yes, Gaga does some weird things in her music, and she would be a fun house. I don't think she, as a creator, would want a Horror Nights house. She doesn't typically associate herself with horror aside from American Horror Story as an actress, but her music side is not necessarily Horror Nights style. Could they make it work? Probably, but I would rather see, you know, recreations of some of her American Horror Story characters in that style house, and I don't think we're gonna see that. And I also don't think Gaga would be into creating a haunted house out of her music. That's not her style of music either. While I think it would be fun for fans, I don't see that being a thing. I could be entirely off base. Maybe Gaga has talked about it and I just don't follow her closely enough to know about it. But it's not like, you know, the Wyatt Six, where there was a whole storyline behind the person wanting the house, and The Weeknd had said it prior to him having a house. Same thing with House of a Thousand Corpses. It was very integral to their characters. I think Gaga feels kind of out of left field, personally speaking. While it's not completely off the table for me on my speculation list, I don't think it's very high on the list of probability. I think FNAF is our top contender or likelihood. I don't foresee there being any slasher classic horror IPs this year. There might definitely be some resurgence of Resident Evil. We might see Sinners. I think Sinners and FNAF are probably your most likely if they could get Sinners done in time. FNAF, where they've been working with the franchise prior, they could have started that design behind the scenes before the movie even came out and really understood, these are the animatronics we're going to need for the next version of the house. Whereas Sinners, it might have just been too late for this season. And then we've got, Requiem. They've worked with Resident Evil in the past. So it wouldn't be unheard of for them to work with those same people and bring the new game to life. Until Dawn is a kind of out of nowhere, no one's speculating it thought from me as a gamer. I don't think that's very high on the possibility list. It was just a thought when I was looking up top performing horror movies of 2025 to see what possibly Horror Nights could be cooking up. But if I am to lock in my top 4 for this year, I am going to say from a top 4 IPs, we are going to get FNAF 2. We are going to get a house for that. We are going to see a Blumhouse Mix-It-Up house again for the 500th time. Unfortunately, it's an anniversary year. They try to phone in IPs, and Blumhouse is a long-standing relationship with Horror Nights. Every year, there's some sort of thing with Blumhouse. So I cannot imagine they will let Black Phone 2 go to waste and only be in a scare zone, despite the fact that we're all kind of tired of it. I am going to lock in Sinners. While that is a risky lock-in, I do think it is well receped enough, and the character design and things like that is easy enough. You can write an outline without needing years or extra length. It can be a later IP acquired to be able to make that house happen. And then the last one I am going to lock in, let me think, what do I really think is a possibility for such an iconic, usually original heavy year? Based on last year, I am gonna say that despite the reception for Fallout, knowing how a lot of these contracts work, I do feel we're going to get a follow-on to Fallout. Those are my IPs. 2 of the same ones from last year, because they do spend a lot of money on originals and they wouldn't want to acquire new IPs. Sinners and what did I say? Now I can't even remember what I said. Oh, Blumhouse. So yeah, 3 things we've seen before and 1 new IP, because they're not going to want to dump money on IPs when they're dumping money on originals, partially because IPs tend to come with complications when it comes to icons. At least the newer ones do. So that's why I do truly believe that any IP we see this year is mostly going to be things that they've worked with before, or things that they already have contracts in place from previous years to be able to work with icons and things like that. So that's my thought on IPs. Now, I would love to see Until Dawn. I would love to see Resident Evil. I would love to see more video game properties, but I think the most likely video game property we're going to see is Fallout and FNAF. Just purely because that is the most we can get at. And if it's not Sinners, it could be, Last of Us 2. We never did get season 2 of Last of Us, I don't think, as a house. We only got the first. So we got Last of Us as a game and TV series. We never got Last of Us 2 as a game or TV series. So we could also get that, given their partnership in the past as well. But any IP this year, I think, is going to be something we've seen before. It's not going to be anything new or revolutionary, which is why I also think Sinners is a little bit of a reach, but it's the most likely IP property to show up in the realm that we're in now. But when it comes to originals, these are hard to speculate, because until you start getting Easter eggs and things like that, there is not a lot to go on. Obviously, we have Jack and Oddfellow. They have their dueling house. Jack tends, and not just Jack, but Anniversary years in general tend to come with the Pumpkin King and Little Boo and Wicked Growth. We could see a follow-on to Wicked Growth in any way, shape, or form. We could have an expansion of last year's big set piece scare zone in the form of some, who is also connected to Slaughter Cinema, from what I understand. We could get a full house of Crooked Lane. We could also get a new Slaughter Cinema. I do believe I'm going to lock in an original of a new Slaughter Cinema or something connected to Slaughter Cinema, whether it's Crooked Lane, a whole new Slaughter Cinema to give a whole new slew of scare zones, or something along the lines of that. I know Slaughter Cinema typically only comes with the director, or the usher. I think we got a Slaughter Cinema with usher. Could we see, with the return of Jack, the return of Psychoscarapy? I would love that, but I don't think that they would give Jack a standalone house on top of the dual house with Oddfellow. But we could see a Psychoscarapy. While she has not been announced as an official icon of this season, you don't always get full announcements if there are other supporting icons. And I could see Chance returning with her own Psycho Crazy Funhouse, given the carnival theme. Chance does typically come with anything that has carnival-esque, as she is just as wild and crazy as Jack. We could see a return of Eddie and get a return of the run houses. There are other icons we could put in play here to come with their iconic houses, but while I don't think it's likely, I would love to see a return of Psychoscarapy and everything that comes with that disgusting house. It was one of the houses that I experienced my first year, and I get to bring my nephew this year for the first time, and I would love for him to experience the horrid rancid smells that is Psychoscarapy. But I don't think that's likely, given that we already have Chaos and Control announced. Nor do I think Oddfellow is likely to get his own standalone house. We could see an expansion of Dead Man Tells No Tales with the giant set piece. We could see an expansion of El Artista with, why do I say that weird? With Sergio. But again, a lot of these houses, other than Dead Man Tells No Tales, have other icons or icon adjacent figures associated with them. We're not gonna get a 30 Years of Fear, duel it out kind of house, because we already know we're getting that with Jack and Oddfellow, so we're not going to get more icons coming into the scene. So do they take something like Toxic 20s and turn it into a house, right? We saw that in Mr. Sweets turning into a full house. It's not unheard of for previous scare zones to be turned into full-blown houses. I can only think of houses associated with previous icons that I do truly love when it comes to the originals, aside from Wicked Growth, which also is kind of attached to the Pumpkin Lord. Is he an icon? Is he not? The line of who is an icon in recent years has been very funny. A lot of people didn't think Oddfellow himself was an actual icon, but apparently he is, because he's back for an anniversary year, officially staking his claim as an icon. So when it comes to originals, what I would like to see and what I think is going to happen are two very different things. Whereas with the IPs, I'm kind of happy with everything that's rumored minus Fortnite. I don't think Fortnite's a reality, to be honest. I have heard some speculation that Killer Clowns from Outer Space would be coming, but I just don't see that. Some people have said, oh, we're gonna get it, but not in a house. And I'm like, we've already had a Killer Clowns scare zone. And yes, we had 500 years of vamp, whatever, but I don't foresee an IP being a scare zone multiple years. Like, not even like multiple adjacent years. Because, yes, I know we've had something similar with Blumhouse where it just moves around the park every few years and becomes a scare zone when they have nothing else better to do. But I think that is mostly just because of their partnership with Blumhouse. They can throw Blumhouse at the event whenever they want. I don't think that is the same thing with Killer Clowns. When it comes to originals, I am at a loss for thoughts on what we might see, because it's all Universal creative. Yes, we could see a return of some of our favorites, but or an expansion on stories from some of our favorites in the past. I do think the one thing we are almost guaranteed to get is something Slaughter Cinema connected and something Carrie connected. We have seen almost every year Jack has been involved, I believe. We have seen some sort of Carrie, Ohio. He is connected to that. Just like the director is connected to his camera, or the storyteller is connected to Fairy Tale. Carrie, Ohio is connected to Horror Nights, as connected to Jack, as connected to Eddie, as connected to Oddfellow now, as connected to Fear. It all lures and links together, so at the end of the day, we will have a scary Carrie house, we'll have a Slaughter Cinema, I am almost certain, or something connected to Slaughter Cinema. I definitely could see them expanding upon Cat Lady of Crooked Lane. That Scare Zone was very popular last year, and they did a lot of work on it for it only to be a Scare Zone and die just there. So I definitely could see that being our next IP kind of franchisee that turns into a full-blown house from a Scare Zone. Other than Slaughter Cinema and something related to Carrie, we definitely know we won't be getting Welcome to Derry. Carrie reminded this. We will not get Pennywise and Jack the Clown in the same year, but that's another IP that we will not get this year. I also think with TV series like that, Universal does have a habit of doing multiple seasons, and we just don't have enough of Welcome to Derry for a house yet. Even if they did want to put, the Year of the Clown together and bring Art back and do Pennywise and Jack all together, for whatever reason, that would be insane. But they could do it. This would be the perfect year with the carnival theme, but I don't foresee that being a thing. They made a house out of dueling dragons in the past. We could see, I don't know, what else could we see? An homage to some ride. I'm trying to think, what homage would we get? Because no rides. We could get an homage to Lost Continent. We could get a very, lore deep something, I don't foresee any of our other, Universal unique things coming into play. I do feel it'll be all connected to previous lore when it comes to the the originals this year. We will probably see a lot of sequels to previous beloved houses. Maybe we get 2 separate single connections to Jack and Oddfellow houses. Chance gets a house or something. Or you see Chance appear in the Jack and Oddfellow house. Maybe you get some sort of connection to HHN Unleashed, where Jack and Chance do have a residency in Vegas. You could connect to Unleashed and do a Scarecrow sequel. You go do Scarecrow in Vegas and then come do it here. We could see a repeat of, originals that Hollywood has gotten. Their Hispanic series, but I don't think that one's done yet. The folklore series that John was working on in Hollywood, I don't know that series is completely done in Hollywood, but when it is, we could see it come to Orlando and be repeated. We've seen a lot of that passing of originals between the two. There's a lot of rumors that Hollywood might get a mashup of their character and ours, and similar to how the Universal Monsters house worked, there might be a duel. And Last of Us, I think? Was it Last of Us or Quiet Place? One of the houses that was an IP had connection point between Orlando and Hollywood, where one picked up the story that ended in the other. We could see that happen with Jack and the Hollywood character, maybe. We don't know. And unfortunately, at this point in the season, originals are definitely a lot harder to speculate on than IPs, just because they are so different year to year. Like I said, my 2 major speculations for what we might see is Wicked Growth, because Wicked Growth is connected to Fear and Jack and Oddfellow. I think we even had a Wicked Growth style house the year Oddfellow came in, but that also was Oddfellow the same year as Pumpkin Lord? Unofficially the icon, just like Pumpkin Lord was unofficially the icon? I don't know. All of these years are blending together. Who came in where, when, and why? We could see the return of a voodoo house because of Oddfellow, which I think maybe I'm mixing up Hollow Scream and Horror Nights now. I do think we have had a voodoo house in the past. We could see that. But I do think if any two things were to return, or any three things were to return, it would be Wicked Growth, Scarecrow the Reapening, and Slaughter Cinema. We could get a scary house. I don't know that we'll get that, though. Definitely something related to Cary, Ohio. We've seen scare zones in the past, but I don't know that another scary drive-in, is that what it was? I know there was a house completely dedicated to like a 50s version of Scary Ohio. We'll definitely see something connected to that long, deep running lore with Cary, Ohio, but we are on the hunt officially for summer Easter eggs in, I'm sure people are scouring the Mardi Gras tribute store for Easter eggs now that we know Jack is officially back. People were even bringing up the totems at the end of LRT stuff from last year, teasing Jack's return. We may even see a small reappearance of Fear. The ghost-like versions of Jack and Oddfellow in the trailer that they played at MegaCon, very reminiscent of Fear himself being a part of this event somehow. We'll get more on Jack and Oddfellow's backstory this year, so I'm excited for that. But I will be updating my speculations, I'm sure, but I wanted to kind of throw out what I'm thinking this early in the season, because we are way early this year to have merch and everything else already, which is insane that we're already starting this, but Jack is back. Hopefully they do Premium Scream again this year, and I get to wear a Chance cosplay to the event. I will actually prep and cosplay this year, and yeah, off to the chaos and mayhem that comes with the fuckery that is Jack being back. But for now, I hope you guys enjoy the chaos and get to participate in the fuckery.